The massive transport vessel glided through the docking bay doors of Omega-7, its hull scarred from the long journey across the galaxy. Inside the observation deck, alien cadets pressed their faces against the reinforced windows, watching the newest arrivals with hungry curiosity. For 300 years, the Galactic Naval Academy had trained the finest warriors, pilots, and officers from dozens of worlds, but never before had they welcomed students from the legendary Deathworld called Earth. Tom stepped off the transport. First, his worn military boots clicking against the polished deck plates. Behind him came Maya, her engineer's toolkit slung over one shoulder, followed by Alex, whose diplomatic training showed in every measured step. Rio bounced slightly on her toes, unable to contain the restless energy that had made her a champion athlete back home. Sam clutched a datapad covered in technical notes, while Dana carried her medical bag with the practiced grip of someone who had seen too much suffering. The welcoming committee stood in perfect formation, their diverse alien forms creating a rainbow of scales, chitin, and translucent skin. Commandant Veltar stepped forward, his tall Altarian frame draped in ceremonial robes that shimmered with rank insignia. His 4 eyes studied the humans with the calculating gaze of someone who had spent decades evaluating potential officers. "Welcome to Omega-7, Veltar announced, his voice carrying the formal tone reserved for official ceremonies. "You are the first representatives of your species to attend our academy. The galaxy watches with great interest to see how Deathworlders adapt to our curriculum." The word Deathworlders hung in the air like a challenge. Tom noticed how the alien cadets whispered the term among themselves, some with fear, others with skepticism. A group of Draknari warriors flexed their clawed hands, their reptilian eyes gleaming with anticipation. The insectoid Chitrix clicked their mandibles in what passed for laughter among their kind. Maya stepped forward, her engineering background making her naturally curious about the station's construction. The academy sprawled across multiple levels, with training facilities designed to accommodate the physical needs of dozens of different species. Gravity generators maintained Earth-normal conditions in some sections while other areas simulated the crushing atmosphere of gas giant moons or the low-gravity environment of asteroid colonies. "Your quarters are located in Section C7, announced a crystalline Zephyrian instructor whose name badge read Luxandra. "Tomorrow you will begin standard evaluation protocols. I trust you have reviewed the Academy handbook during your journey." Alex nodded politely, though the diplomatic training kicked in as usual. The handbook had been fascinating reading, filled with records that had stood for decades or even centuries. Combat simulations dominated by Draknari aggression, piloting courses perfected by Nexari precision, endurance trials that broke the will of species evolved on Paradise worlds. The human group followed their escort through corridors lined with holographic displays showing the Academy's greatest achievements. Rio paused before a monument listing physical fitness records, her athlete's eye automatically calculating the numbers. The times and distances seemed impressive, though something about the way they were presented suggested these aliens had never encountered the kind of training regimens that Earth's harsh environment had forced humanity to develop. Sam's technical mind absorbed every detail of the station's construction. The Chitrix had clearly influenced the design with their preference for hexagonal architecture, while Draknari battle planning had shaped the tactical simulation centers. Each species had contributed their strongest qualities to create what they considered the ultimate training facility. "The evening meal is served in the Central Commons," their escort continued. "You will find nutritional supplements suitable for carbon-based life forms. Tomorrow's evaluations begin at 0800 station time." Dana nodded, her medical training already analyzing the various alien physiologies they had encountered. The diversity was remarkable, yet she noticed how each species seemed to excel in narrow specializations. The Draknari were built for combat, but moved awkwardly in low-gravity environments. The ethereal Vorthak possessed incredible mental processing speed, but their delicate frames couldn't handle physical stress. As they settled into their quarters, the humans could hear alien voices through the walls. The universal translator made most conversations comprehensible, though cultural context remained mysterious. Betting pools were apparently forming about how quickly the Deathworlders would wash out of the program. "Did you hear what they're saying?" "About us?" Rio asked, stretching in the cramped space designed for smaller alien frames. "Let them talk," Tom replied, unpacking his few possessions with military precision. "We're not here to make friends. We're here to prove that Earth deserves a place in their galactic community." Maya was already studying technical manuals she had downloaded during the journey. The Academy's systems were impressive but seemed to rely heavily on specialized equipment rather than adaptable solutions. Earth's resource scarcity had taught humans to innovate with whatever materials were available, a skill that might prove valuable in unexpected ways. The first night passed quietly, though sleep came fitfully in the alien environment. Strange sounds echoed through the station's corridors as different species maintained their natural activity cycles. The air recycling system hummed with unfamiliar harmonics, and the artificial gravity felt slightly different from Earth's natural pull. Morning brought fresh challenges as the humans made their way to the evaluation center. Alien cadets lined the corridors, their curiosity now mixed with anticipation. Word had spread that the legendary Deathworlders would finally face the same tests that had challenged the galaxy's finest for centuries. The evaluation chamber was a marvel of alien engineering, with modular sections that could simulate any environment or tactical situation. Holographic displays showed the current record holders in various categories, their achievements immortalized in crystalline monuments. Commandant Veltar addressed the assembled crowd, his formal tone carrying across the chamber. "Today we welcome Earth's representatives to our evaluation protocols. These tests have stood unchanged for generations, providing fair measurement of capabilities across all known species." Tom felt the weight of expectation settling on his shoulders. Behind him, his fellow humans prepared for whatever challenges awaited. They had trained for this moment during the long journey from Earth, but no amount of preparation could fully predict what lay ahead. The testing would begin in minutes, and the galaxy would finally learn what Deathworlders were truly capable of achieving. The morning alarm resonated through the Academy halls with a deep harmonic that made human teeth ache. Tom rolled out of his narrow bunk and checked the chronometer, noting that his internal clock had already adjusted to the station's artificial day cycle. 3 months of space travel had taught him to adapt quickly to new environments, a skill that would prove more valuable than he realized. The evaluation center buzzed with activity as alien spectators filled the observation galleries. Word had spread through the Academy overnight, and cadets from every species had abandoned their regular training schedules to witness the Deathworlder trials. Betting terminals displayed odds that heavily favored the established record holders, with some bookmakers refusing to accept wagers on human success. Instructor Croc stepped forward, his Drachnary scales gleaming under the harsh training lights. The reptilian warrior had held the combat simulation record for 15 years, an achievement that had earned him legendary status among the Academy's fighting instructors. His yellow eyes fixed on Tom with the predatory focus of an apex hunter, sizing up potential prey. The combat evaluation tests reflexes, endurance, and tactical thinking under extreme stress, Crocs announced, his voice carrying the growling undertone common to his species. The simulation includes multiple environmental hazards, armed opponents, and time-sensitive objectives. Current record stands at 847 seconds, established by myself in cycle 2847. Tom nodded and stepped into the simulation chamber, feeling the familiar weight of practice armor settling across his shoulders. The holographic environment materialized around him, creating an urban battlefield complete with smoking ruins and the distant sound of weapons fire. Multiple targets appeared simultaneously, their positions calculated to test reaction time and tactical awareness. The timer began counting, and Tom moved with fluid precision honed by years of military training. His approach differed fundamentally from what the alien observers expected. Where Drachnary tactics emphasized overwhelming force and direct confrontation, Tom used cover and misdirection to divide his opponents. He turned environmental hazards into weapons, using collapsing structures to eliminate multiple targets while conserving ammunition for more challenging encounters. Maya watched from the gallery, her engineer's mind analyzing the simulation's parameters. The test seemed designed to reward brute force tactics, but Tom was treating it like a puzzle to be solved rather than a battle to be won. His movements were economical, each action serving multiple purposes in ways that suggested a deeper understanding of resource management than the original designers had anticipated. The alien spectators began murmuring as Tom's timer continued dropping. Halfway through the simulation, he was already ahead of Crox's record pace, but his strategy became even more impressive as the scenario increased in difficulty. Where other candidates had struggled with the final challenge, Tom seemed to accelerate, his tactics becoming more creative as pressure mounted. The simulation ended with a sharp electronic tone. The display showed Tom's completion time, 612 seconds, shattering Crox's long-standing record by over 3 minutes. The observation gallery fell silent as alien minds processed what they had witnessed. "Impossible," Crox whispered, his clawed hands tightening into fists. The simulation parameters were unchanged. How did he complete the final sequence so quickly? Maya stepped forward for her piloting evaluation, taking her place in the flight simulator's cockpit. The interface was different from Earth-designed systems, but her engineering background helped her understand the underlying principles. Instructor Quindle, a graceful Nexari with silver skin and oversized eyes, explained the test parameters with obvious pride. This simulation tests spatial awareness, reaction time, and system management under crisis conditions, Quindle said. Candidates must navigate a 3-dimensional obstacle course while managing multiple system failures and emergency scenarios. The current record of 1,340 points has stood for 12 years. The simulation began with Maya piloting a virtual spacecraft through an asteroid field while dealing with cascading system failures. Unlike other candidates who followed established procedures, Maya began improvising solutions that the test designers had never considered. When the navigation system failed, she used gravitational readings to plot her course. When life support malfunctioned, she rerouted power through non-standard pathways that technically violated safety protocols, but kept her alive. Her final score appeared on the display, 1,892 points, a result so far beyond the previous record that several observers initially assumed the scoring system had malfunctioned. Quindle stared at the numbers with disbelief, her large eyes reflecting the display's glow. "The scoring algorithm has been verified," announced a Shatrix technician, its compound eyes studying multiple data streams simultaneously. All parameters were within normal ranges. The candidate achieved unprecedented efficiency through unconventional problem-solving methods. Alex prepared for the diplomatic crisis simulation, a complex scenario that had challenged the galaxy's finest negotiators for decades. The test required managing negotiations between 5 hostile species while dealing with resource shortages, territorial disputes, and the constant threat of war. Master Diplomat Zenthara's 78% success rate had been considered nearly perfect, representing the theoretical limit of what skilled negotiation could achieve. The simulation placed Alex in a virtual conference room surrounded by holographic representatives from different species, each with their own cultural biases and hidden agendas. Traditional diplomatic training emphasized finding common ground and building consensus, but Alex quickly realized that human experience with diverse cultures provided unique advantages rather than treating each species as a monolithic entity. Alex began identifying individual motivations and personal interests that transcended cultural boundaries. The technique was something humans had learned from managing Earth's complex international relationships, but it seemed revolutionary to aliens who approached diplomacy as a species-level interaction. The simulation progressed through increasingly difficult scenarios, but Alex's success rate continued climbing. Where other diplomats had failed to prevent conflicts, Alex found solutions by reframing problems in ways that appealed to each participant's underlying needs, rather than their stated positions. The final results showed a 94% success rate, a score so high that Academy administrators began reviewing the simulation parameters to ensure no errors had occurred. The diplomatic instructors gathered around Alex, asking detailed questions about negotiation techniques that seemed to violate established galactic protocols while achieving superior results. Rio approached the endurance challenge with the quiet confidence of someone who had pushed human physical limits for years. The testing chamber could simulate any environment, from the crushing gravity of superworlds to the radiation-soaked surface of stellar colonies. The current record holder, a massive Gorlick warrior named Thrud, had achieved legendary status by completing the course in 4 hours and 23 minutes. The test began with Rio running through variable gravity fields that shifted every few minutes, forcing her body to constantly readjust to changing conditions. Where other candidates had struggled with the transition periods, Rio seemed to adapt almost instantly, her athlete's conditioning helping her maintain peak performance regardless of environmental changes. As the hours passed, alien observers began to understand that human endurance operated on different principles than they had expected. Rather than relying on specialized adaptations for specific environments, humans seemed capable of thriving in any conditions through sheer adaptability and determination. Rio crossed the finish line with a time of 3 hours and 47 minutes, her expression suggesting she could continue for several more hours if necessary. The achievement left alien spectators speechless, forcing them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about Deathworlder capabilities. The evaluation day had only begun, but already the galaxy's understanding of human potential was undergoing fundamental revision. News of the morning's record-breaking performances spread through Omega 7 like wildfire. Alien cadets abandoned their afternoon training sessions to crowd the observation galleries, while instructors huddled in urgent conferences trying to understand what they had witnessed. The Academy's communication systems buzzed with reports being transmitted to home worlds across the galaxy, each message carrying the same impossible news. The Deathworlders were exceeding every expectation. Sam entered the tactical analysis chamber with quiet determination, carrying the same datapad that had accompanied the journey from Earth. The crystalline walls of the testing facility reflected light in complex patterns, creating an environment designed to challenge the visual processing capabilities of dozens of different species. Instructor Luxandra stood beside the central command console, her translucent form shimmering with pride as she prepared to oversee another demonstration of Zephyrian strategic superiority. This simulation presents a complex multi-front conflict requiring simultaneous management of fleet movements, resource allocation, and strategic planning, Luxandra announced, her voice carrying harmonic overtones that made the crystal walls resonate. Candidates must coordinate 17 different battle groups while adapting to changing tactical situations. The current efficiency record has remained unbroken for 43 years. The holographic display activated, filling the chamber with a three-dimensional representation of a star system under siege. Enemy forces approached from multiple vectors while friendly units struggled with supply shortages and communication breakdowns. Previous candidates had relied on established tactical doctrines, following procedures developed by their species' greatest military minds. Sam approached the problem differently. Rather than accepting the scenario's apparent constraints, human creativity began identifying opportunities that the simulation designers had never anticipated. When supply lines were severed, Sam established alternative logistical networks using civilian shipping. When communications failed, Sam coordinated fleet movements through predictive positioning that didn't require constant contact. The alien observers watched in fascination as Sam's unconventional solutions began producing results that exceeded theoretical maximums. Traditional tactics emphasized controlling specific strategic points, but Sam treated the entire battlefield as a dynamic system where every element could be leveraged to create unexpected advantages. Maya found herself studying Sam's approach from the gallery, her engineering background helping her understand the underlying principles. Earth's history of warfare had taught humans to innovate under pressure, developing solutions that worked with limited resources rather than ideal conditions. This adaptability was proving invaluable in scenarios designed to test established military doctrine. The simulation concluded with enemy forces in full retreat, their strategic objectives abandoned in the face of tactics they couldn't predict or counter. Sam's efficiency rating appeared on the display, 127%, a score that technically exceeded the simulation's maximum possible value. The testing algorithms had to be recalibrated to accommodate results beyond their original design parameters. The scoring system assumed certain tactical limitations, Alexandra said, her crystalline form flickering with confusion. These results suggest strategic thinking that operates outside established frameworks. Dana prepared for her medical emergency simulation, knowing that her performance would be judged against standards developed by species with centuries of specialized medical training. The testing chamber transformed into a chaotic field hospital, complete with multiple casualties representing different alien physiologies and a shortage of standard medical equipment. Instructor Veltar observed from the control room, his four eyes tracking Dana's movements as she assessed the situation. The Altarian medical tradition emphasized precise application of established procedures, with success measured by adherence to proven protocols rather than improvised solutions. The simulation began with a cascade of medical emergencies that would challenge even experienced practitioners. Draknari warriors suffering from energy weapon burns, Chitrix workers with crushed exoskeletons, and Vorthek refugees experiencing psychological trauma from telepathic warfare. Each case required specialized knowledge of alien physiology combined with quick decision-making under extreme pressure. Dana moved through the virtual hospital with practiced efficiency, but her approach differed fundamentally from previous candidates. Where others had struggled with unfamiliar alien biology, Dana treated each patient as a unique puzzle requiring individual solutions. Her Earth-based medical training had emphasized adaptability and resourcefulness, skills that proved invaluable when dealing with the unexpected. When standard medications proved ineffective on alien physiology, Dana began experimenting with alternative treatments based on underlying biological principles rather than species-specific protocols. Her success rate climbed steadily as she developed innovative solutions that the simulation's designers had never considered possible. The medical evaluation concluded with Dana achieving a perfect score, the first candidate in Academy history to successfully treat every simulated casualty without losing a single patient. The achievement left the medical instructors speechless, forcing them to acknowledge that human medical training produced capabilities they had never encountered. Tom returned to the combat evaluation chamber, this time facing a different instructor and a more challenging scenario. Word of his morning performance had spread throughout the academy, attracting attention from military observers who had traveled from across the galaxy to witness Deathworlder combat techniques. The new simulation placed Tom in command of a small unit facing overwhelming odds, a scenario designed to test leadership skills under impossible circumstances. Previous record holders had focused on minimizing casualties while achieving basic objectives. Accepting that some losses were inevitable in hopeless situations, Tom's approach emphasized turning disadvantages into advantages, using terrain and timing to multiply his unit's effectiveness. His tactics drew from Earth's long history of asymmetric warfare, where smaller forces had learned to defeat larger enemies. Through superior strategy and unconventional thinking, the simulation concluded, with Tom's unit achieving total victory despite facing odds that should have guaranteed defeat. His tactical innovations had not only saved every virtual soldier but had turned a defensive scenario into an offensive triumph that eliminated the enemy threat entirely. Alex faced a second diplomatic challenge, this time involving a crisis that had escalated beyond normal negotiation procedures. The simulation presented a situation where traditional diplomacy had failed, requiring innovative approaches to prevent galactic war. The scenario involved ancient territorial disputes complicated by resource scarcity and cultural misunderstandings that had festered for generations. Previous candidates had focused on managing the crisis, accepting that some level of conflict was inevitable given the intractable nature of the underlying problems. Alex, began by reframing the entire situation, identifying underlying economic and social factors that traditional diplomatic approaches had ignored. Rather than treating the crisis as inevitable, Alex worked to address root causes that made conflict seem necessary to the participants. The innovative approach produced results that exceeded every previous diplomatic achievement, transforming a potential war into a collaborative development project that addressed everyone's underlying needs. The solution was so effective that several galactic governments immediately requested copies of Alex's negotiation protocols. Rio entered the endurance chamber for a second trial, this time facing environmental conditions that had broken the will of countless previous candidates. The test combined extreme temperatures, variable atmospheric pressure, and gravity fluctuations, designed to push biological systems beyond their breaking points. The alien observers expected to see human limitations finally revealed, but Rio's performance continued to defy their understanding of Deathworlder capabilities. Her endurance seemed to operate on principles that transcended individual physical conditioning, drawing on mental resilience that allowed her to push through barriers that stopped other species. As the day progressed, it became clear that the human cadets were not simply breaking individual records but were revolutionizing the Academy's understanding of what was possible. Each achievement forced alien instructors to reconsider fundamental assumptions about biological limitations and species-specific capabilities. Maya completed her second piloting evaluation, this time managing a crisis scenario that required coordinating multiple spacecraft while dealing with system failures and hostile interference. Her engineering background continued to provide advantages that the test designers had never anticipated, allowing her to develop solutions that worked around problems rather than solving them through brute force. The Academy's communication systems struggled to keep pace with the flood of record-breaking achievements, while observers from across the galaxy began arriving to witness the phenomenon firsthand. What had begun as routine evaluations was transforming into a demonstration that would reshape galactic understanding of human potential. By afternoon's end, every major Academy record had been broken, some by margins so large that the scoring systems required fundamental recalibration. The alien cadets watched in amazement and growing respect as the Deathworlders continued to exceed every expectation, their achievements suggesting capabilities that transcended traditional understanding of biological limitations. The Academy's main communications array worked at maximum capacity as news of the human achievements spread across the galaxy. Military observers, academic researchers, and even species representatives began arriving on emergency transports, their governments demanding first-hand verification of reports that challenged 3 centuries of established understanding about biological limitations and species capabilities. Commandant Veltar stood in his office overlooking the main training complex, watching as additional observation galleries were hastily constructed to accommodate the growing crowds. His 4 eyes tracked the movements of alien dignitaries whose presence transformed routine Academy operations into a galactic event of unprecedented significance. Sir, we have received formal requests from 17 different governments asking for detailed analysis of human performance metrics, announced his aide, a young Nexari officer whose silver skin gleamed with nervous energy. The Draknari High Command is questioning the validity of our testing protocols. Veltar's expression remained neutral, though decades of command experience helped him recognize the political implications of what was unfolding. The Academy had always served as neutral ground where different species could measure their capabilities, without the complications of interstellar politics. Now that neutrality was being tested by achievements that seemed to rewrite the rules of biological possibility, the afternoon session began with Sam facing the Grand Tactical Simulation, a comprehensive war game that had challenged the galaxy's greatest strategic minds for over 2 centuries. The testing chamber expanded to accommodate observers from multiple species, each hoping to understand how human tactical thinking differed from established military doctrine. Instructor Luxandra activated the simulation with obvious reluctance, her crystalline form reflecting the complex emotions surrounding the day's events. The scenario presented a galactic-scale conflict involving dozens of species, hundreds of star systems, and resource limitations that made victory seem mathematically impossible for any single faction. This simulation has been attempted by over 10,000 candidates, Alexandra announced, her harmonic voice carrying across the crowded chamber. The highest achievement belongs to Grand Strategist Zermac of the Hegemony Council, who managed a 73% efficiency rating through careful resource management and strategic patience. The holographic display filled the chamber with a three-dimensional map showing the current galactic political situation. Multiple factions competed for control of trade routes, resource-rich systems, and strategic positions that could determine the balance of power for generations. Traditional approaches emphasized building alliances and gradually expanding territorial control through careful negotiation and limited warfare. Sam studied the display for several minutes. The human mind, processing information in ways that differed fundamentally from alien strategic thinking. Where other candidates had focused on managing existing power structures, Sam began identifying opportunities to reshape the entire strategic landscape through unconventional approaches. The simulation began with Sam taking control of a minor faction possessing limited military resources and few natural advantages. Previous candidates had focused on survival and gradual expansion, accepting that minor powers could never hope to challenge established galactic hegemonies. Sam's approach emphasized turning disadvantages into advantages, using the faction's apparent weakness to forge unexpected alliances and create strategic opportunities that larger powers couldn't exploit. Rather than competing directly with established factions, Sam began developing alternative power structures that bypassed traditional territorial control. The alien observers watched in fascination as Sam's unconventional strategies began producing results that exceeded theoretical maximums. Economic warfare replaced military conquest, with trade agreements and technological exchanges creating influence networks that proved more durable than territorial occupation. Maya found herself analyzing Sam's tactics from an engineering perspective, recognizing the same innovative thinking that had characterized human technological development. Earth's resource scarcity had taught humans to maximize efficiency through creative solutions rather than brute force approaches, a skill that translated perfectly to strategic planning. The simulation progressed through increasingly complex scenarios, but Sam's efficiency rating continued climbing. Where other strategists had struggled with resource limitations, Sam had turned scarcity into an advantage by developing sustainable systems that grew stronger over time rather than consuming finite resources. The final results appeared on the display: 94% efficiency, a score that exceeded every previous achievement by margins that forced observers to question their understanding of strategic possibility. The simulation's designers had never anticipated approaches that could achieve such comprehensive success while using fewer resources than traditional methods required. The scoring algorithms have been verified multiple times, announced a Chitrix technician, its compound eyes reflecting the display's impossible numbers. The candidate achieved theoretical maximum efficiency while introducing strategic concepts that exceed our simulation parameters. Dana faced her final medical challenge, a comprehensive emergency scenario that combined mass casualties with resource shortages and hostile environmental conditions. The testing chamber transformed into a disaster zone where multiple alien species required simultaneous treatment while dealing with contamination, equipment failures, and time constraints that had broken even experienced medical teams. The simulation began with a cascade of medical emergencies that would have challenged the resources of a major hospital, but Dana had to manage everything with field equipment and limited supplies. Traditional medical training emphasized following established procedures, but the scenario's complexity required constant adaptation and innovative problem-solving. Dana moved through the virtual disaster zone with practiced efficiency, her Earth-based training providing advantages that the test designers had never anticipated. Human medical education emphasized improvisation and adaptability, skills that proved invaluable when dealing with unprecedented combinations of alien physiology and environmental hazards, where other candidates had focused on treating the most salvageable patients, Dana began developing triage systems that maximized survival rates across all casualties. Her approach emphasized prevention and resource multiplication, turning limited supplies into comprehensive treatment capabilities. Through creative application of basic medical principles, the medical simulation concluded with Dana achieving perfect scores in every category, successfully treating casualties that previous candidates had considered hopeless, while maintaining efficiency levels that exceeded theoretical maximums. The achievement left medical instructors speechless, forcing them to acknowledge that human medical training produced capabilities they had never imagined possible. Tom returned to the combat evaluation chamber for a final challenge, this time facing a scenario designed specifically to test the limits of Deathworlder combat capabilities. Military observers from across the galaxy filled the viewing galleries, their governments demanding detailed analysis of human fighting techniques. The simulation placed Tom in command of a desperate defense against overwhelming odds, a scenario based on historical battles that had defined military doctrine for generations. The test emphasized leadership under impossible circumstances, with success measured by the commander's ability to minimize casualties while achieving basic defensive objectives. Tom's approach drew from Earth's extensive history of asymmetric warfare, emphasizing mobility and unconventional tactics that turned apparent disadvantages into strategic advantages. Rather than accepting defensive limitations, Tom began developing offensive capabilities that used terrain and timing to multiply his forces. Effectiveness. The simulation concluded with Tom achieving total victory against odds that should have guaranteed defeat, his tactical innovations transforming a defensive scenario into an offensive triumph that eliminated the enemy threat while saving every defender. The achievement forced military observers to reconsider fundamental assumptions about combat doctrine and strategic possibility. Alex faced the ultimate diplomatic challenge, a crisis scenario that had escalated beyond normal negotiation procedures and threatened to destabilize entire regions of galactic civilization. The simulation presented ancient conflicts complicated by resource scarcity, cultural misunderstandings, and political tensions that had resisted diplomatic solutions for centuries. Traditional diplomatic approaches had focused on managing such crises, accepting that some level of conflict was inevitable given the intractable nature of underlying problems. Alex began by reframing the entire situation, identifying economic and social factors that conventional diplomacy had ignored. The innovative approach produced results that exceeded every previous diplomatic achievement, transforming potential wars into collaborative development projects that addressed everyone's underlying needs. The solution was so effective that several galactic governments immediately requested detailed analysis of Alex's negotiation protocols. Rio completed her final endurance trial, pushing through environmental conditions that had broken the will of candidates from species specifically evolved for extreme environments. Her performance continued to defy alien understanding of biological limitations, suggesting reserves of mental and physical resilience that transcended individual conditioning. As the day concluded, Academy administrators struggled to process achievements that exceeded their measurement system's design parameters. Every major record had been broken, many by margins so large that the scoring algorithms required fundamental recalibration to accommodate results beyond their original theoretical maximums. The human cadets had not simply demonstrated superior individual capabilities but had revealed approaches to problem-solving that challenged established understanding of what was possible within biological constraints. Their achievements suggested that Earth's harsh environment had produced not just tough survivors but innovative thinkers capable of redefining excellence itself. Commandant Veltar prepared to address the assembled observers, knowing that his words would be transmitted across the galaxy and would influence interstellar relations for generations to come. The Academy had always served as neutral ground for measuring species capabilities, but the day's events had transformed routine evaluations into a demonstration that would reshape galactic understanding of human potential. The Academy's main Assembly hall filled beyond capacity as representatives from every major galactic civilization gathered to witness the final evaluation. Emergency seating arrangements struggled to accommodate observers, whose governments had dispatched them on urgent transport vessels, their arrival transforming routine Academy operations into the most significant military demonstration in recorded galactic history. Commandant Veltar stood before the assembled crowd, his 4 eyes scanning faces that represented the full spectrum of galactic civilization. Drachnary warriors sat beside ethereal Vorthic philosophers, while crystalline Zephyrian strategists shared viewing spaces with massive Gorlick engineers. The diversity was remarkable, yet every observer shared the same expression of anticipation mixed with disbelief. The final evaluation consists of a comprehensive team exercise, Veltar announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. This simulation requires coordination across all major military disciplines, combat operations, PILOTing, diplomacy, endurance, tactical planning, and medical support. No single species has ever attempted this challenge with only 6 individuals. The testing chamber expanded to its maximum configuration, creating a multi-level environment that could simulate any combination of battlefield conditions. Holographic displays showed the scenario parameters, a complex multi-phase operation, requiring the human team to coordinate rescue operations on a hostile world while managing diplomatic negotiations and tactical challenges simultaneously. Tom gathered his team in the preparation area, noting how their individual achievements had already changed the atmosphere surrounding their presence. Alien cadets who had initially dismissed them as primitive deathworlders now watched with respectful attention, eager to learn from beings who had redefined the limits of what was considered possible. "This is what we trained for during the journey," Tom said, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had seen impossible situations become routine challenges. "Every one of us brings something unique to this team, and Earth taught us that diversity makes us stronger rather than weaker." Maya checked her equipment, her engineer's mind already analyzing the simulation parameters and identifying potential technical challenges. The scenario involved rescuing diplomatic hostages from a planet experiencing environmental collapse, requiring piloting skills to navigate atmospheric disturbances while managing system failures and hostile interference. Alex reviewed the diplomatic files, noting that the hostage situation involved multiple species whose cultural differences had contributed to the crisis. Traditional diplomatic approaches would focus on managing competing interests, but human experience with diverse societies suggested opportunities for more innovative solutions. Rio stretched in preparation for the physical challenges ahead, knowing that the simulation would test endurance capabilities under extreme environmental conditions. The rescue operation required ground teams to function in hostile terrain while dealing with atmospheric toxicity and gravitational anomalies, Sam studied. The tactical displays, recognizing patterns that suggested opportunities for unconventional strategic approaches. The scenario appeared designed to test established military doctrine, but human experience with asymmetric warfare offered alternatives that might prove more effective than traditional methods. Dana prepared her medical equipment, understanding that the rescue operation would inevitably produce casualties requiring treatment under field conditions. The simulation included multiple alien species with different physiological needs, demanding adaptability and innovative problem-solving under extreme time pressure. The simulation began with the human team aboard a rescue vessel approaching the hostile planet, their mission complicated by diplomatic negotiations that had stalled and environmental conditions that made STANDARD rescue procedures impossible. Traditional approaches would have focused on managing individual challenges separately, but the team's Earth-based training emphasized integration and mutual support. Tom coordinated overall strategy while maintaining tactical flexibility, his combat experience helping him adapt to changing conditions without losing sight of primary objectives. Maya piloted their vessel through atmospheric disturbances that should have been impossible to navigate. Her engineering background, allowing her to modify systems in real time to handle unexpected challenges. Alex opened diplomatic channels with hostile factions while simultaneously coordinating with allied forces, using negotiation techniques that addressed underlying motivations rather than stated positions. The approach began producing results that exceeded the simulation's expected parameters, turning adversaries into reluctant allies through innovative problem-solving. Rio led ground operations in terrain that had broken previous rescue teams, her endurance allowing the team to maintain operational tempo despite environmental conditions, designed to exhaust even specialized planetary assault forces. Her leadership kept morale high while pushing through obstacles that would have stopped conventional military units. Sam coordinated tactical support from orbit, managing resource allocation and strategic positioning to maximize team effectiveness. His unconventional approaches began producing force multiplication effects that the simulation's designers had never anticipated, turning disadvantages into strategic advantages through creative thinking. Dana established field medical stations that could treat multiple species simultaneously, her adaptability allowing her to develop treatment protocols for alien physiology while working with limited equipment under hostile conditions. Her innovations began saving lives that previous medical teams had considered beyond hope. The simulation progressed through increasingly complex phases, but the human team's performance continued to exceed every theoretical maximum. Their coordination demonstrated synergies that the test designers had never anticipated, with individual specializations combining to create capabilities that transcended the sum of their parts, where previous teams had struggled with communication, breakdowns, and conflicting priorities. The humans seemed to operate with intuitive understanding that allowed them to adapt to changing conditions without losing tactical coherence. Their Earth-forged experience with diversity had taught them to leverage differences as strengths rather than obstacles. The rescue operation reached its climax as environmental conditions deteriorated beyond survivable levels, forcing the team to execute their evacuation plan under impossible circumstances. Traditional military doctrine would have accepted significant casualties as inevitable, but the human approach emphasized creative solutions that saved everyone while achieving all primary objectives. Tom coordinated the final extraction while managing hostile forces that had appeared without warning, his tactical flexibility allowing him to turn potential disaster into operational triumph. Maya piloted their vessel through atmospheric conditions that should have torn any aircraft apart, her engineering modifications keeping systems functional despite overwhelming stress. Alex completed diplomatic negotiations that transformed enemy factions into rescue assets using persuasion techniques that addressed fundamental needs rather than superficial demands. Rio led the final ground phase while dealing with terrain that had collapsed into barely navigable obstacles, her endurance allowing the team to maintain operational tempo when other forces would have been forced to retreat. Sam managed orbital support operations that multiplied ground team effectiveness through unconventional resource deployment, turning limited assets into comprehensive operational capabilities. Dana coordinated medical evacuation for casualties from multiple species, while maintaining treatment standards that exceeded peacetime hospital protocols. The simulation concluded with complete mission success achieved in record time while maintaining zero casualty rates among both team members and rescued personnel. The achievement required Academy administrators to recalibrate their entire scoring system, as the human team had exceeded theoretical maximums in every measurable category. The observation galleries fell silent as the final results appeared on displays throughout the chamber. The human team had not only completed the impossible challenge, but had done so while establishing new benchmarks for excellence that redefined what was considered achievable within biological constraints. Commandant Veltar stepped forward, his expression reflecting the magnitude of what he had witnessed. The day's events had challenged every assumption about species' capabilities while demonstrating approaches to problem-solving that transcended established understanding of biological and tactical limitations. Today we have witnessed achievements that require us to fundamentally reconsider our understanding of Deathworlder capabilities, Veltar announced, his voice carrying across the chamber with formal gravity. These results suggest that Earth's harsh environment produced not just tough survivors, but innovative thinkers capable of redefining excellence itself. The alien observers began to understand that their initial assessment of humanity had been profoundly flawed. Earth's dangers had not created brutal primitives, but had forged beings whose adaptability and creativity allowed them to thrive in any environment while finding solutions where others saw only obstacles. The Draknari instructors acknowledged that human combat techniques offered strategic possibilities they had never considered, with tactical approaches that achieved superior results through innovation rather than overwhelming force. The Nexari pilots admitted that human engineering perspectives provided solutions to problems they had accepted as unsolvable. The Zephyrian strategists recognized that human tactical thinking operated on principles that exceeded their theoretical frameworks, while the Chitrix coordinators marveled at teamwork capabilities that transcended individual specializations. Even the Altarian medical staff acknowledged that human adaptability produced treatment capabilities that surpassed their established protocols. The Academy's motto, carved in stone for 3 centuries, received its first amendment in institutional history. Below the original inscription, "Excellence through Endurance," appeared new words that reflected the day's transformative events. Innovation through adversity. Word of the human achievement spread across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, carried by emergency diplomatic communications that prioritized the information above routine interstellar correspondence. Governments that had initially dismissed Earth as an insignificant deathworld began reassessing their strategic calculations. The human cadets found themselves fast-tracked through advanced training programs, their demonstrated capabilities earning them immediate placement in leadership. Positions that typically required years of additional education, Academy instructors competed for opportunities to study human techniques, eager to understand methods that achieve superior results through unconventional approaches. Tom accepted assignment to the Academy's Combat Instruction Division, where his tactical innovations would be studied and adapted by military forces across the galaxy. Maya joined the engineering faculty, her problem-solving methods promising to revolutionize spacecraft design and operational procedures. Alex entered the diplomatic corps with unprecedented credentials, diplomatic techniques already being requested by governments facing intractable conflicts. Rio became an instructor in the endurance training program, her methods offering hope to species struggling with environmental challenges. Sam joined the Strategic Planning Institute, unconventional approaches already being incorporated into military doctrine by forward-thinking commanders. Dana accepted placement in the Medical Research Division, her adaptive techniques promising to improve treatment capabilities across multiple species. The Academy's curriculum underwent immediate revision as instructors worked to incorporate human innovations into established training programs. What had begun as routine evaluations had evolved into a comprehensive demonstration that transformed galactic understanding of what was possible within biological constraints. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their world's danger, but their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. Earth's harsh environment had forged beings whose adaptability and determination could overcome any obstacle through innovative thinking and collaborative effort. As the human cadets settled into their new roles, alien students lined up for opportunities to train alongside the Deathworlders who had redefined excellence in a single day. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that had turned survival into an art form and innovation into a way of life. The day that had begun with routine evaluations concluded with the recognition that humanity deserved not just acceptance but leadership positions in the galactic community. Earth's children had proven themselves worthy partners in the great work of civilization, bringing unique perspectives that would enrich the galaxy for generations to come.